The wedding dress was still warm when Vanessa found her fiancé inside her stepsister, their bodies tangled in the bridal suite that was supposed to be hers in 3 hours. She stood frozen in the doorway, her hand clutching the bouquet of white roses she'd come to retrieve. The silk of her robe whispered against her skin as her world collapsed into a single, crystallized moment of absolute destruction. Marcus didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. He simply pulled away from Ashley, his eyes meeting Vanessa's with something worse than guilt: indifference. "Vanessa," he said, his voice flat, "we need to talk." Ashley sat up, her blonde hair cascading over her bare shoulders, and had the audacity to smile. That same sweet smile she'd worn at family dinners, at Christmas gatherings, at every moment she'd played the loving stepsister while planning this betrayal. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way," Ashley purred, her fingers trailing possessively across Marcus's chest. "But honestly, darling, did you really think he loved you? You're so ordinary." The bouquet fell from Vanessa's hands, white roses scattering across the plush carpet like fallen stars. Her legs moved before her mind could catch up, carrying her backward, away from the scene that would haunt her forever. "Vanessa, wait," Marcus called out, but she was already running. Through the hotel corridors she fled, her vision blurred with tears, the sound of her heartbeat drowning out everything else. Staff members stared as she passed. This woman in a silk robe racing through the luxury hotel like a ghost fleeing her own wedding. The November air hit her like a slap when she burst through the side entrance. Cold, sharp, real. She gulped it down, trying to remember how to breathe, how to exist in a world where the man she'd loved for 3 years had just shattered her into a million irreparable pieces. Her phone buzzed incessantly in her pocket. Messages from her mother, her bridesmaids, the wedding planner. Everyone wondering where the bride had gone. But how could she tell them? How could she stand in front of 200 guests and admit that she'd been a fool? Vanessa walked. Away from the hotel, away from her carefully planned future, away from everything she thought she knew. The streets of New York blurred past her, the city lights beginning to glow as dusk settled over Manhattan. She found herself in front of Inferno, an exclusive nightclub in the meatpacking district that she'd only heard about in whispers. The kind of place where the elite went to indulge their darkest desires, where velvet ropes and dangerous men kept ordinary people at bay. The doorman, a mountain of muscle in a black suit, looked her up and down. Her silk robe, her bare feet, her tear-stained face. He should have turned her away, but something in his expression shifted. "Rough night?" he asked, his voice surprisingly gentle. "The worst," she whispered. He stepped aside. "First drinks on the house. You look like you need it." The club interior was a study in sin and luxury. Red velvet, crystal chandeliers, and shadows that promised anonymity. Bass thrummed through the floor, vibrating in her chest where her heart used to be. Vanessa made her way to the bar, ignoring the stares of the impeccably dressed patrons. Let them look. Let them judge. Nothing they thought could hurt her more than she already hurt. "Whiskey," she told the bartender. "The most expensive you have. Actually, bring the bottle." He raised an eyebrow but complied, setting down a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle that probably cost more than her engagement ring. The engagement ring she yanked off her finger and slammed onto the bar with a force that made the bartender flinch. She poured, drank, and poured again. The whiskey burned, but it was a cleaner pain than the one tearing through her chest. "That's a $2,000 bottle you're attacking," a voice said from beside her. Deep, accented with something that sounded like old New York money and Italian heritage. "Either you're celebrating something extraordinary or mourning something irreplaceable." Vanessa turned her head slowly, the alcohol already warming her blood, and found herself looking into the most dangerous eyes she'd ever seen. The man was devastating in the way a storm was devastating, beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. Dark hair swept back from a face carved from marble and sin, a jaw sharp enough to cut, and eyes so intensely dark they seemed to swallow light. He wore a three-piece suit that probably cost more than her car, and power radiated from him like heat from a flame. "Mourning," she said, her voice steadier than she expected. "Mourning the 3 years I wasted on a man who was fucking my stepsister in our bridal suite 3 hours before our wedding." Something flickered in those dark eyes. Interest? Amusement? Respect? "Then he's a fool," the man said, sliding onto the stool beside her with the grace of a predator. "And she's a snake. A dangerous combination. And you are?" "Dante Moretti." He said it simply, as if the name should mean something. It did. Even in her alcohol-hazed state, even in her heartbreak, Vanessa knew that name. Everyone in New York knew that name, whispered in fear and reverence. Dante Moretti, the king of the city's underworld, the man who controlled everything from the docks to the politicians, who built an empire on blood and loyalty. She should have been afraid. She should have run. Instead, she poured him a glass of her expensive whiskey and slid it across the bar. "Vanessa Hart," she said. "Soon to be just Vanessa Nobody, I suppose." "Vanessa Hart," he repeated, tasting her name like fine wine. "Marcus Blackwood's fiancé. I know him. Arrogant bastard who thinks his family's old money makes him untouchable." "You know Marcus?" "Our paths have crossed. He owes several people money, including some associates of mine." Dante's smile was sharp as a blade. "He's been using your family connections to secure loans he can't repay. Did you know that?" The whiskey suddenly tasted bitter. "No. Of course not. Men like him see women like you as assets, not partners." Dante leaned closer, and Vanessa caught the scent of expensive cologne and something darker, more primal. "Tell me, Vanessa Hart, what would you do if you could make him regret every moment of his betrayal?" "Anything," she breathed, the word escaping before she could stop it. "Anything is a dangerous word to offer a man like me." "Maybe I want dangerous. Maybe I'm tired of safe and respectful and faithful, since clearly those things are illusions." Dante studied her for a long moment, his gaze intense enough to make her skin flush despite the air conditioning. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I have a proposition for you, Vanessa Hart." He opened the box. Inside sat a ring, not a delicate engagement ring like the one she'd worn, but a statement. A massive emerald surrounded by diamonds, set in platinum. It was bold, possessive, the kind of ring that declared ownership rather than partnership. "Marry me," Dante said, his voice low and commanding. "Not for love, not for romance. Marry me to give Marcus Blackwood and your treacherous stepsister a front-row seat to your upgrade. Marry me so I can legitimize my business holdings with a respectable wife from old New York society. Marry me, and I'll give you everything you need for revenge, protection, and a life where no one will ever dare betray you again." Vanessa's heart hammered against her ribs. This was insane. He was a criminal, a killer, a man who lived in a world she couldn't begin to understand. But when she closed her eyes, all she saw was Marcus and Ashley, their bodies intertwined, their betrayal complete. When she opened them, Dante was still watching her, waiting with the patience of a man who always got what he wanted. "What's in it for you?" she asked. "A beautiful, intelligent woman from a respected family to be the face of my legitimate enterprises. Someone the politicians and businessmen will trust because they know your bloodline. And," his smile turned predatory, "the satisfaction of taking something Marcus Blackwood wanted and making it mine. This is crazy. Crazy would be going back to that hotel and pretending your fiancé didn't just destroy you. Crazy would be facing those guests alone." He lifted the ring from its box. "This is strategy. This is power. This is taking control of your narrative before it controls you." The whiskey hummed in her veins. The pain still throbbed in her chest. And somewhere in the chaos of her shattered world, a new feeling emerged. Rage. Pure, crystallized rage that demanded satisfaction. Vanessa held out her hand. Dante's eyes gleamed with triumph as he slid the emerald ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, heavy and foreign, and somehow exactly right. "There are rules," he said, his thumb tracing over her knuckles in a gesture that sent electricity up her arm. "This is a business arrangement. You play the role of my devoted wife in public. You attend events, smile for cameras, and make Marcus Blackwood choke on his regret. In private, we maintain separate lives. No expectations, no emotions, no complications. How long? 1 year. After that, if you want out, we divorce quietly. You'll receive a generous settlement and walk away with your revenge complete. And if I break the rules?" His grip on her hand tightened just enough to remind her of his strength. "Then you'll discover why people fear the name Moretti." She should have been terrified. Instead, she felt alive for the first time in hours. "Deal." Dante pulled her to her feet with effortless strength, and suddenly they were standing chest to chest, his height making her crane her neck to meet his eyes. "One more thing," he murmured, his free hand coming up to cup her jaw. "For this to work, we need to sell it, starting now." "What do you mean?" He kissed her. Not gently, not tentatively, but with the confidence of a man claiming what belonged to him. His mouth was demanding, possessive, tasting of whiskey and dark promises. Vanessa's gasp gave him access to deepen the kiss, his tongue sweeping against hers in a way that made her knees weak and her mind blank. When he pulled back, she was breathless, her lips swollen, her body trembling with something that definitely wasn't fear. "You'll do," Dante said with satisfaction. "Now, let's go make an announcement. I believe your wedding guests are still at the hotel, waiting for a bride who will never show. Let's give them a different show entirely." The limousine that pulled up to Inferno's entrance was the kind that made people stop and stare. Sleek, black, with windows tinted dark enough to hide secrets and sins. 2 men in suits flanked the vehicle, their eyes scanning the street with professional paranoia. "Your security?" Vanessa asked as Dante guided her toward the car with a hand on the small of her back. "My brothers," he corrected. "Luca and Marco. They handle the family's interests when I'm occupied with other matters." Osh, one of them, Luca, she guessed from his slightly younger face, opened the door, his eyes widening fractionally when he saw her silk robe and bare feet. "Boss," he said carefully, "should we—" "We're going to the Plaza Hotel," Dante interrupted, sliding into the car and pulling Vanessa in beside him. "The Hart Blackwood wedding venue, and call ahead to Valentina. Tell her to bring everything she needs to transform a bride." The door closed, cocooning them in leather luxury and privacy. The limousine pulled away from the curb smoothly, merging into New York traffic like a shark through water. Vanessa stared at the emerald ring on her finger, its weight still foreign. "I don't understand. You want to go back there? To my wedding?" "Not your wedding anymore," Dante said, pulling out his phone and typing rapidly. "Your wedding was to a man unworthy of you. What we're about to do is make a statement that will echo through every society circle in this city." "By doing what exactly?" He looked up from his phone, his dark eyes glittering with something between amusement and ruthlessness. "By walking into that reception, interrupting whatever pathetic excuse Marcus is making for your absence, and announcing to everyone that Vanessa Hart is now Vanessa Moretti. That you chose a real man over a boy who couldn't appreciate what he had." Her breath caught. "That's insane. We can do whatever we want, darling. That's the benefit of being with me." He reached over and took her hand, his thumb brushing over the ring. "Marcus humiliated you in private. We're going to humiliate him in public. Fair exchange. But everyone will know I just met you tonight. They'll think I'm insane or desperate or—" "They'll think you're brave," Dante interrupted, his voice softening slightly. "They'll think you're a woman who refused to be broken by betrayal. They'll whisper about it for years. How Vanessa Hart walked away from conventional society and straight into the arms of the most dangerous man in New York. How she chose passion over propriety." The limousine glided through the streets, and Vanessa watched the city lights blur past, her mind racing faster than the car. This was madness. Absolute madness. But what was the alternative? Hiding in her apartment? Crying over a man who'd never loved her? Facing the pitying looks and whispered gossip alone? What happens after tonight? She asked quietly. Tomorrow my lawyers will have papers drawn up. A prenuptial agreement that protects both of us. You'll move into my penthouse in Tribeca. Separate bedroom, of course. We'll establish our routine, our public image. And then, he leaned back, his expression calculating. Then we destroy anyone who thinks they can disrespect what's mine. I'm not yours. This is a business arrangement. His smile was predatory. You're wearing my ring, Vanessa. That makes you mine in every way that matters to the world. Whether it means anything to you is your choice. Before she could respond, the limousine pulled up to a private entrance of the Plaza Hotel. Another woman was waiting there, tall, elegant, with silver-streaked dark hair and an imperious expression. She carried several large garment bags and a professional makeup case. Valentina, Dante greeted her as they exited the car. Thank you for coming on such short notice. For you, Dante. Always. The woman's sharp eyes assessed Vanessa from head to toe. So, this is the bride. Interesting choice. Can you make her devastating in 30 minutes? 20, Valentina said with confidence. Come, girl. We have work to do. Vanessa found herself whisked into a private room off the hotel's main corridor, where Valentina worked with the efficiency of a general commanding troops. The silk robe was replaced with a dress that made Vanessa's breath catch, a deep emerald green that matched her new ring, form-fitting and elegant, with a neckline that suggested rather than revealed. Dante has excellent taste, Valentina murmured, zipping the dress. This color makes your skin glow. Now sit. Let me fix your face. My face is fine. Your face shows you've been crying, and we don't give men like Marcus Blackwood that satisfaction. Valentina's hands were gentle but firm as she worked, concealing the evidence of Vanessa's tears and enhancing her natural features with expert precision. You're beautiful, child. Let's make sure everyone in that ballroom remembers it. 20 minutes later, Vanessa barely recognized herself in the mirror. The woman staring back was sophisticated, powerful, with smoky eyes and lips painted deep red. Her hair had been transformed from its disheveled state into elegant waves that cascaded over one shoulder. Diamond earrings, borrowed from Valentina, glittered at her ears. She looked like she belonged next to a man like Dante Moretti. Perfect, Valentina declared, stepping back to admire her work. Now go claim your throne, little queen. Dante was waiting in the corridor, and the way his eyes darkened when he saw her made something flutter in Vanessa's stomach that had nothing to do with fear. Stunning, he said simply, offering his arm. Ready to make history? No, she admitted, but let's do it anyway. They walked through the hotel's ornate corridors, their footsteps echoing on marble floors. Dante's men flanked them at a discreet distance, silent shadows ensuring their safety. As they approached the ballroom, Vanessa could hear music and voices. Her wedding reception, continuing without her. Last chance to back out, Dante murmured, his hand covering hers on his arm. Vanessa thought of Marcus's indifferent eyes, Ashley's cruel smile, the 3 years of her life wasted on a lie. She thought of the future she'd imagined. Suburban house, 2.5 children, dinner parties with people who would never truly accept her. Then she looked at Dante, this dangerous man who'd offered her something more intoxicating than love, power. Open the doors, she said. Dante nodded to his men, and the ballroom doors swung wide. The music stuttered to a stop. Conversations died mid-sentence. 200 faces turned toward them, expressions ranging from shock to confusion to horror. Vanessa's mother stood near the head table, her face pale. Marcus was there too, now dressed in his tuxedo, speaking urgently with Vanessa's father. Ashley sat at a table nearby, smug satisfaction written across her features. Until she saw Vanessa, until she saw the man beside her, until she saw the ring. Good evening, Dante's voice carried across the silent ballroom with casual authority. I apologize for interrupting, but I have an announcement that concerns everyone here. He guided Vanessa forward, their entrance commanding every eye. She felt the weight of their stares, the judgment, the shock. And beneath it all, she felt Dante's steady presence beside her, solid as stone. "My name is Dante Moretti, and this," he pulled Vanessa closer, his arm sliding around her waist in a gesture of unmistakable possession, "is my fiancé, Vanessa Hart, soon to be Vanessa Moretti." The ballroom erupted. Gasps, whispers, her mother's strangled cry. But Vanessa only had eyes for Marcus, watching his face drain of color as understanding dawned. "That's impossible," Marcus sputtered, pushing through the crowd. "Vanessa, what the hell is this? This is our wedding day." "Was," Vanessa corrected, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "It was our wedding day, Marcus, until I found you with Ashley in the bridal suite." More gasps. Ashley's face went from smug to panicked. People turned to stare at her, at Marcus, piecing together the scandal. "You can't be serious," Marcus said, his eyes wild. "You're going to throw away 3 years because of one mistake? And with him?" He gestured at Dante with contempt. "Do you know what he is? He's a criminal, Vanessa. A murderer. He'll destroy you." Dante's expression didn't change, but Vanessa felt the tension in his body, the leashed violence ready to spring. Before he could speak, she stepped forward. "What he is, Marcus, is a man who wanted me enough to put a ring on my finger in public, who didn't need to fuck my stepsister to feel powerful, who sees me as something more than a trophy or a bank account." She held up her hand, letting the emerald catch the light. "This ring is worth more than the pathetic diamond you gave me. But more importantly, the man who gave it to me is worth 10 of you. Your father will disown you," Marcus threatened. "Society will shun you. You'll have nothing. She'll have everything." Dante interjected smoothly, his hand tightening on Vanessa's waist. "My protection, my name, my resources. And unlike you, Marcus, I take care of what's mine. Now, I suggest you and Miss Ashley find somewhere else to be. This isn't your celebration anymore." "You can't kick me out of—" Dante raised one hand, and suddenly his men were there, flanking Marcus with quiet menace. "I can do whatever I want. This hotel, I own it. The band, I'm paying them. Every champagne glass in this room? Mine. So yes, Marcus, I absolutely can kick you out. The only question is whether you leave walking or whether my associates help you." Marcus looked around desperately, seeking support. But Vanessa's father stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "Marcus," he said quietly, "I think it's best if you go. We'll discuss the financial matters later." "But sir, Now." It was a command, and Marcus had no choice but to obey. He shot Vanessa one last look, part anger, part disbelief, part something that might have been regret, before stalking toward the exit. Ashley followed quickly, her head down, avoiding the stares and whispers. As the doors closed behind them, Dante turned to the remaining guests with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Now that the unpleasantness is handled, shall we celebrate? After all, we have an engagement to toast." He signaled the band, and music started again, soft and elegant. "Please, enjoy the evening. The bar is open, the food is excellent, and I promise the rest of the night will be far more entertaining than watching a coward run away." Slowly, conversation resumed. Hesitant at first, then building. People clustered in groups, whispering frantically, but they stayed. Because when Dante Moretti invited you to celebrate, refusing was dangerous. Vanessa's mother approached, her face a mask of conflicting emotions. "Vanessa, darling, we need to talk. This is highly irregular. You barely know this man, and his reputation is exactly what Vanessa needs right now," Dante interrupted smoothly. "Mrs. Hart, I assure you, your daughter will want for nothing. She'll be protected, cherished, and positioned at the top of New York society. Isn't that what you always wanted for her? I wanted her happy. And was she happy with Marcus?" Dante's question hung in the air. Ask yourself that honestly. Because from where I stand, Your daughter is showing more life and courage in this moment than I suspect she's shown in 3 years. Vanessa's mother looked between them, then at her daughter's face. Whatever she saw there made her shoulders slump. "Be careful, sweetheart," she whispered. "Please." "I will, Mom," Vanessa promised, surprising herself by meaning it. As her mother drifted away, Dante led Vanessa onto the dance floor. His arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her close as they began to move to the slow music. "You did well," he murmured against her ear. "Very well. Marcus will regret this night for the rest of his life." "What happens now?" she asked, allowing herself to relax slightly into his hold. He was a good dancer, moving with confident grace. "Now we let them talk. Let the gossip spread. By morning, every society page will have our story. By next week, you'll be the most talked about woman in New York." His hand spread across her lower back, holding her possessively. "And then we begin our arrangement properly. The separate bedrooms, the business relationship, all of that?" "All of that," he confirmed. "Unless, of course, you decide you want something different." "I won't." His smile was knowing. "We'll see, Vanessa Hart. We'll see." The penthouse occupied the entire top floor of a Tribeca building that overlooked the Hudson River. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city lights, while the interior was decorated in shades of black, gray, and deep burgundy. Masculine, expensive, and utterly intimidating. Vanessa stood in the foyer, still wearing the emerald dress from the night before, watching as Dante's staff carried in luggage she didn't remember packing. "Your things were collected from your apartment this morning," Dante explained, shrugging out of his jacket and draping it over a nearby chair. He looked unfairly attractive even after the long night, his shirt sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms corded with muscle. "Everything's been moved to your suite. East Wing. Complete privacy. You had people go through my apartment without asking? I had people protect your belongings before Marcus or your stepsister could destroy them out of spite." He poured 2 glasses of whiskey from a crystal decanter. "Trust me, you'll thank me later. Ashley strikes me as the type to burn your clothes and post the video online." He wasn't wrong. Vanessa accepted the glass, taking a long sip. The alcohol burned less than it had the night before. Or maybe she was just becoming numb to burning. "The lawyers will be here at noon," Dante continued, checking his watch. "We'll finalize the prenuptial agreement, discuss the terms of our arrangement, and schedule the wedding for next weekend." "Next weekend?" Vanessa choked on her whiskey. "That's impossible. Weddings take months to plan." "Traditional weddings take months. Ours will take 6 days." He smiled at her expression. "When you have the right connections, Vanessa, anything is possible. Besides, we need to move quickly. The longer we wait, the more people will question the authenticity of our relationship. Because it's not authentic. Because they don't need to know that." He moved closer, and Vanessa found herself backing up instinctively until her spine hit the window. Dante braced one hand against the glass beside her head, leaning in. In public, we're madly in love. Can't keep our hands off each other. So consumed with passion that we couldn't wait another moment to be married. And in private? In private, we're business partners with clearly defined boundaries. His free hand came up to brush a strand of hair from her face, the gesture oddly gentle. Unless those boundaries start to feel restrictive. They won't. Such certainty. His breath ghosted across her lips, and Vanessa's pulse jumped traitorously. "Tell me, when I kissed you last night, did you feel nothing?" "I felt angry, and drunk, and desperate for any distraction from Marcus." "Liar." The word was soft, almost affectionate. "You felt chemistry. Attraction. The same thing you're feeling right now, with your heart racing and your breathing shallow. Arrogance doesn't suit you." "Yes, it does." He pushed away from the window, leaving her flushed and confused. "Get some rest. Tonight, we have our first public appearance as an engaged couple. The Metropolitan Opera is hosting a gala, and everyone who matters will be there. Including, I suspect, your ex-fiancé and his new companion." The thought of seeing Marcus and Ashley again made Vanessa's stomach twist. I don't know if I can— You can, Dante interrupted firmly. Because you're stronger than they ever gave you credit for, and because I'll be right beside you, making sure everyone sees exactly what Marcus lost. That afternoon, Vanessa met with Dante's lawyers in the penthouse's library, a room lined with leather-bound books and smelling of old money. The prenuptial agreement was surprisingly fair. She would receive a monthly allowance of $50,000, full access to his properties and vehicles, and a settlement of $10 million should they divorce after the agreed-upon year. This is too much, she protested, staring at the numbers. It's insurance, the lead attorney, a sharp-eyed woman named Catherine, explained. You're providing a valuable service to Mr. Moretti, legitimacy, social connections, and a respectable public image. This ensures you're compensated fairly. What about his assets? Don't I need to sign away any claim to— My assets remain mine, Dante said, from where he leaned against his desk. As yours remain yours. Should we have children, different arrangements would be made, but given the temporary nature of this marriage, that's unlikely to be relevant. Children. The word sent a strange pang through Vanessa's chest. She'd imagined children with Marcus, a boy with his smile, a girl with her eyes. Now that future was ashes, replaced by this cold transaction. She signed the papers. By evening, Vanessa stood in her new bedroom, a suite larger than her entire previous apartment, decorated in soft creams and golds, staring at the gown hanging on the closet door. It was a masterpiece, black silk that would hug every curve, with a neckline that plunged daringly and a slit that climbed high up one thigh. Dante had sent it with a note. Wear this. Trust me. When she emerged from her suite 2 hours later, fully dressed with her hair swept up and diamonds at her throat and ears, Dante's expression made every moment of preparation worthwhile. Christ, he breathed, his eyes traveling over her with undisguised appreciation. You're going to cause a riot. Is that the goal? The goal is to make every man in that opera house wish he were me, and every woman wish she were you. He offered his arm, looking devastating in a black tuxedo that emphasized his broad shoulders and narrow waist. Ready to play your part? As ready as I'll ever be. The Metropolitan Opera House glittered like a jewel box, its chandeliers casting golden light over New York's elite. Vanessa felt the stares the moment they entered, whispers following them like shadows as Dante guided her through the crowd with a proprietary hand at the small of her back. Moretti, a silver-haired man greeted them, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. Heard you've gotten yourself engaged. Quite the surprise. Senator Williams, Dante replied smoothly. May I introduce my fiancé, Vanessa Hart. Vanessa, the senator sits on several committees that oversee urban development. Translation, he's bought and paid for. Vanessa had learned to read between the lines quickly. Charmed, she said, offering her hand. My father speaks highly of your environmental initiatives. The senator's eyebrows rose. Richard Hart is your father. Well, small world. His gaze sharpened with new interest. I had heard about your previous engagement. To Marcus Blackwood, wasn't it? A fortunate escape, Vanessa replied before Dante could speak. I discovered him in bed with my stepsister the morning of our wedding. Apparently, I dodged a bullet and Dante was there to catch me when I fell. The senator's shock was genuine. My dear, I had no idea. How absolutely dreadful. How absolutely fortunate, Dante corrected, pulling Vanessa closer. Her loss became my gain. We connected immediately, one of those rare moments when you simply know. They moved through the crowd, repeating variations of the same conversation. Each time, Vanessa felt herself slipping deeper into the role of devoted fiancé, laughing at Dante's jokes, leaning into his touch, playing the part of a woman helplessly in love. It should have felt false. Instead, it felt dangerously easy. Then she saw them. Marcus and Ashley, standing near the bar, his hand possessive on her waist. Ashley wore white, a deliberate choice, Vanessa knew, meant to suggest purity she'd never possessed. Steady. Dante murmured against her ear. Remember, we hold all the cards here. Marcus noticed them. His face went rigid, eyes locking on the way Dante held Vanessa, on the diamonds glittering at her throat, on the confidence in her smile. Shall we say hello? Dante suggested, his tone light but his eyes hard. Before Vanessa could respond, Marcus was striding toward them, Ashley hurrying to keep up. Vanessa, Marcus said tightly, we need to talk. Privately. I don't think my fiancé has anything to say to you, Dante replied, his voice pleasant but brooking no argument. And I certainly don't appreciate you approaching her without invitation. This doesn't concern you, Moretti. This is between me and Vanessa. Everything concerning Vanessa concerns me now. Dante's smile was all teeth. That's what happens when you claim a woman properly. You don't abandon her in a bridal suite while you fuck her stepsister. Several nearby conversations stopped. People turned to watch, sensing drama. Marcus's face flushed red. You don't know what you're talking about. Vanessa and I had problems. She was cold, distant. I made a mistake. But Ashley understands me in ways. I understand you're a pathetic child who couldn't handle an actual woman, Vanessa interrupted, surprised by the venom in her own voice. So you downgraded to someone more your speed. I should thank you, Marcus. You freed me to find a real man. Ashley's face twisted with fury. You think you're better than me? You think attaching yourself to a criminal makes you special? Everyone knows what he is, Vanessa. Everyone knows you're just a desperate whore who… She never finished. Dante moved with frightening speed, getting in Ashley's face with such menace that she stumbled backward. Finish that sentence, he said softly. And I promise you'll regret it for the rest of your considerably shorter life. No one speaks to my fiancé that way. No one. Dante? Vanessa touched his arm, feeling the tension thrumming through him. She's not worth it. For a moment, she thought he wouldn't listen. Then he took a breath and stepped back, his hand finding hers and squeezing gently. You're right. She's nothing. He turned to Marcus. I believe you still owe certain associates of mine approximately $300,000. I'm calling in that debt. You have 72 hours to pay in full, or my collectors will visit you. And trust me, Marcus, you don't want that. Marcus went pale. That debt isn't due until next quarter. We had an agreement. We had an agreement before you insulted my future wife. Now we have a new agreement. Pay up or pay the consequences. Dante's smile was cruel. Oh, and Marcus? Stay away from Vanessa. If I see you approach her again, if I hear you've contacted her in any way, I'll consider it a personal insult. And I respond very poorly to personal insults. He guided Vanessa away, leaving Marcus and Ashley standing frozen in the middle of the crowd. Whispers exploded around them, society's gossip mill churning at maximum speed. Did you really just call in his debt because he insulted me? Vanessa asked once they were out of earshot. I called in his debt because he deserves to suffer, Dante corrected. And because watching him squirm gives me immense satisfaction. Consider it an engagement gift. They found their box seats for the performance, but Vanessa couldn't focus on the opera. Her mind kept replaying the confrontation, the way Dante had defended her, the fury in his eyes when Ashley had tried to insult her. During intermission, he excused himself for a phone call, leaving Vanessa alone. She was sipping champagne, trying to process the evening, when a woman approached, elegant, older, with knowing eyes. Vanessa Hart, the woman said. Or should I say, soon-to-be Moretti. I'm Isabella Romano. My late husband did business with Dante. It's nice to meet you, Mrs. Romano. Call me Isabella, darling, and let me give you some advice, woman to woman. She leaned in conspiratorially. Whatever arrangement you think you have with Dante, whatever boundaries you've established, forget them. That man doesn't do anything halfway. When he commits completely. And the way he looks at you? She smiled. That's not the look of a man playing a game. That's the look of a man who's found something he wants to keep. You're wrong. This is purely business. If you say so, dear. Isabella patted her hand. But I've known Dante Moretti for 15 years, and I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. Just be careful. Men like him love with the same intensity they hate. There's no middle ground. She drifted away, leaving Vanessa unsettled. When Dante returned, sliding back into his seat beside her, she studied his profile in the dim light. Strong jaw, sharp cheekbones, eyes that missed nothing. He was beautiful in a dangerous way, like a blade or a flame. As if sensing her scrutiny, he turned to meet her gaze. For a moment, something passed between them, something hot and electric that had nothing to do with their arrangement, and everything to do with the way his hand settled on her thigh, possessive and warm. "What are you thinking?" he murmured. "That this is getting complicated." "Good," he replied, his thumb tracing circles on her leg through the silk of her dress. "Simple is boring. Complicated is interesting. Complicated is dangerous." His smile was slow, predatory. "Dangerous is my specialty, Vanessa. You should know that by now." The opera continued, but Vanessa barely heard it. All she could focus on was the heat of Dante's hand on her thigh, the solid presence of him beside her, and the growing realization that Isabella Romano might have been right. This arrangement was supposed to be temporary, emotionless, safe. But nothing about Dante Moretti was safe, and somewhere in the past 24 hours she'd stopped wanting safe and started craving the fire. 3 days before the wedding, Vanessa woke to shouting. She bolted upright in bed, heart hammering, momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar luxury surrounding her. Then she remembered. The penthouse, the arrangement, Dante. Another crash echoed through the apartment, followed by his voice, low and lethal in a language she didn't understand. Italian, probably, punctuated with words that needed no translation. She grabbed a silk robe and padded barefoot toward the noise, finding Dante in his office. The space was in chaos, papers scattered, a laptop smashed against the wall, and Dante himself standing behind his desk with his hands braced on the mahogany surface, breathing hard. He'd shed his usual suit, wearing only black pants and a white undershirt that clung to his shoulders. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked almost vulnerable. Almost. "What happened?" Vanessa asked from the doorway. His head snapped up, dark eyes finding hers. "You should be asleep. Kind of hard when World War III is breaking out in the next room." She stepped inside, glass crunching under her feet. "Talk to me." "This doesn't concern you. We're getting married in 3 days. Your problems are about to become my problems, at least publicly." She crossed her arms. "So talk." For a long moment he stared at her, jaw clenched. Then he exhaled roughly and sank into his chair. "Someone hit one of my shipments. $3 million in merchandise, gone. 2 of my men dead." His fist slammed onto the desk. "And I know exactly who's responsible. Marcus? Marcus is a gnat. Annoying but ultimately harmless. No, this is bigger. Viktor Kozlov, head of the Russian syndicate. He's been pushing into my territory for months, testing boundaries." Dante's expression turned savage. This is him declaring war. Vanessa's stomach dropped. She'd known Dante was involved in illegal activities, but hearing it stated so bluntly made it real in a way it hadn't been before. "What are you going to do?" "What I always do. Respond with overwhelming force." He looked at her, something dangerous glittering in his eyes. "Still want to marry me, Vanessa? Still think this arrangement is worth it?" She should have been terrified. Should have run back to her room, called her father, ended this insanity before it consumed her. Instead, she moved around the desk and did something that surprised them both. She reached out and took his hand. "I'm not going anywhere," she said quietly. "We made a deal." His fingers closed around hers, grip almost painful. "You don't understand what you're signing up for. This life, my world, it's violence and blood and choices that would haunt you. Then help me understand." The words hung between them, heavier than they should have been. Dante studied her for a long moment, then pulled her down to sit on the edge of his desk. "When I was 16, my father was killed by a rival family," he began, his voice flat. "They didn't just murder him. They made it torture, made it public, made it a message. My mother never recovered. She died 2 years later, broken by grief. I was left with 2 younger brothers to protect, and an empire built on blood to either claim or lose. His thumb traced patterns on her palm, an unconscious gesture that made her shiver. "I chose to claim it. Spent the next decade eliminating everyone who'd had a hand in my father's death. Built my organization into something untouchable. And I promised myself I'd never let anyone close enough to become a weakness again." He looked up at her. "Then you walked into that club with tears on your face and fire in your eyes. And I made a decision that goes against every survival instinct I have." "What decision?" "To want you." The confession was raw. "Not just as a convenient wife or a social asset. To actually want you in my life, in my space, in my bed. And that terrifies me more than Viktor Kozlov ever could." Vanessa's breath caught. This wasn't part of their arrangement. This was real, messy, dangerous. "Dante, I know. Separate lives, no complications, purely business." He released her hand and stood, putting distance between them. "Forget I said anything. Wedding stress, anger at Kozlov, lack of sleep, it meant nothing." But it hadn't meant nothing. She could see it in the tension of his shoulders, the way he avoided her gaze. And the terrifying part was that she felt it too. This pull toward him that had nothing to do with revenge or convenience and everything to do with the man himself. "I should go," she said, standing on unsteady legs. "Yes, you should." Neither of them moved. The space between them felt charged, electric. Vanessa knew if she crossed it, if she touched him again, something fundamental would shift. They'd moved from business arrangement to something neither could control. She took a step forward. Dante's control shattered. He closed the distance in 2 strides, his hands cupping her face as he kissed her with a desperation that bordered on violence. This wasn't like the calculated kiss at the club. This was raw need, weeks of tension exploding into something that left them both breathless. Vanessa's back hit the desk, papers scattering as Dante lifted her onto it, his body pressing between her thighs. His mouth moved to her throat, teeth grazing her pulse point in a way that made her gasp. "Tell me to stop," he demanded against her skin. "Tell me this is a mistake." "It is a mistake," she breathed, her fingers tangling in his hair. "A terrible one." "Then why can't I stop touching you?" "Because I don't want you to." The admission broke something in both of them. Dante's mouth found hers again, and Vanessa surrendered to the heat consuming them. His hands roamed her body with possessive familiarity, learning every curve, every sensitive spot that made her arch into him. The sound of a phone ringing shattered the moment. Dante pulled back, breathing hard, his eyes wild. The phone continued its shrill demand, and with a vicious curse he grabbed it from the desk. "What?" he snarled into the receiver. Then his expression changed, hardening into something lethal. "When? Where? I'll be there in 20 minutes. He ended the call and stepped away from Vanessa, running his hands through his hair. "I have to go. Kozlov's made another move, hit one of my clubs downtown. There are casualties. Let me come with you." "Absolutely not. This isn't a game, Vanessa. People are hurt, maybe dead. You don't need to see that world. I'm about to marry into it. Maybe I should understand exactly what that means." They stared at each other, wills clashing. Finally, Dante nodded curtly. "Fine. But you stay in the car, you do exactly as I say, and if things go bad, you run. Understood?" "Understood." 20 minutes later, they pulled up to Inferno, the same club where they'd met. Police lights flashed in the darkness, ambulances lined the street, and a crowd had gathered behind barricades. The front windows were shattered, glass glittering on the sidewalk like scattered diamonds. Dante's expression was carved from stone as they approached. His men materialized from the shadows, Luca and Marco, along with others Vanessa didn't recognize. They spoke in rapid Italian, gesturing toward the building. "How many?" Dante asked in English, probably for her benefit. 5 injured, 2 critical. No deaths, but it was close. Luca's face was grim. "They used pipe bombs, boss. Could have been much worse if security hadn't evacuated quickly." Kozlov's signature. Messy, loud, designed to send a message. Dante's jaw clenched. "He's trying to provoke me into a war he thinks he can win. So what do? We make him regret ever hearing the name Moretti." Dante turned to Vanessa. "Go back to the car. I need to check on my people, and you don't need to see the inside right now." But Vanessa had already glimpsed through the shattered windows, the blood on the floor, the destroyed furniture, the medics working frantically. This was Dante's reality, the violence that built his empire. She should have been horrified. Instead, she felt only rage at whoever had hurt his people, damaged his property, challenged his authority. When had she started thinking like this? When had his enemies become hers? "Vanessa, car, now." Dante's tone brooked no argument. She went, but not before catching the look on Luca's face, surprise and something that looked like respect. Back in the limousine, Vanessa watched through tinted windows as Dante moved through the chaos with absolute authority. He spoke to medics, his men, even the police officers, who seemed oddly deferential. Money changing hands, political connections, both probably. This was his kingdom, and he ruled it with iron control. An hour passed before Dante returned, sliding into the car with blood on his shirt and exhaustion lining his face. "Is everyone okay?" Vanessa asked. "They will be. 1 fractured skull, 1 broken leg, various cuts and bruises. Lucky, considering." He loosened his tie, the first truly unguarded gesture she'd seen from him. "I'm sorry you had to witness this." "I'm not." When he looked at her in surprise, she continued, "I needed to see it, needed to understand what this life means. And I'm not running, Dante. Not from Kozlov, not from the violence, not from any of it. You should be. Probably. But I'm not." She reached out and touched his jaw, feeling the tension there. "So, what happens now? Now I plan my response. Kozlov thinks I'm weak because I'm getting married, thinks I'm distracted by a woman. He's about to learn how wrong he is." Dante's smile was cold. "And you're going to help me." "How?" "The wedding. We make it spectacular, public, a show of strength rather than vulnerability. We invite everyone, politicians, businessmen, even Kozlov himself. And we show him that Vanessa Moretti is not a weakness, but an asset. That together, we're untouchable." The way he said her future name sent heat through her veins. Vanessa Moretti. She'd thought she'd feel trapped by it, diminished. Instead, she felt powerful. "All right," she agreed. "Let's give them a wedding they'll never forget." Dante pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. "You're either very brave or very foolish. Maybe both." "Definitely both." His lips brushed hers, gentle this time, almost reverent. "But you're mine now, Vanessa. And I protect what's mine with everything I have." "Even from yourself?" "Especially from myself." They drove through the city as dawn broke over Manhattan, and Vanessa realized something that should have terrified her, but instead felt inevitable. She was falling for Dante Moretti. Not the dangerous mafia boss, not the powerful criminal, but the man beneath. The one who'd lost his parents too young, who carried the weight of an empire on his shoulders, who kissed her like she was air and he was drowning. Their arrangement was supposed to be temporary, emotionless, safe. But nothing about falling in love with a man like Dante would ever be safe. And she was falling, faster than she could stop, toward a point of no return. The wedding preparations consumed the penthouse. Florists arrived with exotic blooms. Caterers presented tasting menus, and seamstresses fussed over Vanessa's custom gown, a creation of ivory silk and French lace that cost more than most people's cars. Through it all, Dante conducted his shadow war with Viktor Kozlov, disappearing for hours at a time and returning with blood under his fingernails and darkness in his eyes. Vanessa learned not to ask questions. She simply waited, had hot coffee ready, and touched him in ways that reminded him he was still human beneath the monster he became in those hours. 2 nights before the ceremony, everything changed. Vanessa was reviewing seating charts when Dante burst through the door, his face a mask of barely controlled fury. Marco and Luca flanked him, both looking grim. "Pack a bag," Dante ordered without preamble. "We're moving you to a safe house." "What? Why?" "Because Kozlov knows about you now. Really knows. Not just that you're my fiancé, but that you matter." He grabbed her arms, his grip almost bruising. "One of my informants intercepted communications. He's planning something for the wedding. An attack? And kidnapping? Maybe both. I won't risk you. Then cancel the wedding. Postpone it until—" "No." The word was absolute. "We don't show weakness. We don't let him dictate our lives. But I also won't have you in danger because of my choices." Vanessa pulled free from his grasp, anger flaring hot in her chest. "So what? I hide in some safe house like a coward while you face this alone? That's not how this works, Dante." "That's exactly how this works. You're not trained for this. Not prepared for—" "Then train me," she was shouting now, weeks of tension exploding. "You want me to be your wife? Then treat me like a partner, not a fragile doll to be locked away when things get difficult. I've seen your world, Dante. I've chosen to stay. So stop trying to protect me from my own decisions." Silence fell, heavy and charged. Luca and Marco exchanged glances, then quietly excused themselves, leaving the couple alone in their standoff. Dante's jaw worked, emotions warring across his face. "You don't understand what men like Kozlov do to send messages, what they'd do to you if they got their hands on you. Then make me understand. Stop shielding me and show me the truth." He moved so fast she barely saw him coming, crowding her against the wall with his body. But there was no violence in the gesture, only desperate intensity. "They'd hurt you," he said, his voice raw. "They'd break you piece by piece and send me recordings of every scream. They'd destroy everything beautiful about you just to watch me suffer, and I would burn this entire city to ash to get you back. But by then it would be too late. You'd be broken, and it would be my fault for bringing you into this world." Vanessa's anger softened, replaced by understanding. His fear wasn't about her capability, it was about his capacity to survive losing someone else he cared about. "I'm not your mother," she said gently, touching his face. "I'm not going to break from grief or fade away. I'm stronger than you think. Stronger than I thought, actually. You've shown me that. Vanessa, I'm not hiding, Dante. We face this together or not at all." For a long moment, he simply stared at her, searching for something in her eyes. Then he kissed her, hard, possessive, tinged with desperation and something that felt dangerously close to love. "If anything happens to you," he whispered against her lips, "if Kozlov so much as touches you, there won't be a hole deep enough for him to hide in. Nothing's going to happen. Because we're going to be smart about this." She pulled back enough to meet his gaze. "What's your plan?" Over the next hours, Dante laid out his strategy. The wedding would proceed as scheduled at the Cathedral of St. Patrick, with over 300 guests. But security would be tripled, with his men positioned throughout the venue in formal wear. Vanessa would wear a tracking device embedded in her jewelry, and Luca would shadow her every movement. "We're also extending an invitation to Kozlov himself," Dante added, his smile sharp. "Make it impossible for him to refuse without looking weak. He'll come, if only to scout the security and plan his move. Won't that make things more dangerous? Better to have the devil where you can see him than lurking in shadows." He pulled up surveillance footage on his laptop. "Besides, I want him there. Want him to see exactly what he's trying to take from me. Want him to understand the magnitude of his mistake." The night before the wedding, Vanessa couldn't sleep. She wandered the penthouse in a silk nightgown, eventually finding her way to Dante's office. The door was ajar, light spilling into the hallway. He sat behind his desk, still fully dressed despite the late hour, studying documents with fierce concentration. He looked exhausted, beautiful, and utterly alone. "You should rest," Vanessa said from the doorway. "Tomorrow's a big day." "Can't. Too much to coordinate." He rubbed his eyes. "You should sleep, though. Need you looking perfect when you walk down that aisle." "Is that all you need from me? To look perfect?" He finally looked up, something vulnerable flickering across his features. "You know it's not." Vanessa crossed to him, circling the desk to stand between him and his work. "Then tell me what you need." "I need—" He broke off, hands coming up to grip her waist. "I need to know you'll be safe. That choosing me wasn't the worst decision of your life. That when this year is up and you have the option to walk away, you might—" He trailed off, unable or unwilling to finish. "Might what?" "Stay." The word was barely audible. "Might choose to stay with me not because of revenge or money or obligation, but because you want to." Vanessa's heart cracked open. This powerful, dangerous man was asking her for something far more terrifying than any business arrangement. He was asking for her heart. "Dante," she whispered, threading her fingers through his hair. "I stopped seeing this as temporary weeks ago. I'm terrified of what that means, of how I feel about you. But I can't pretend anymore. Can't pretend I don't crave your touch, your attention, your darkness, and your light. Can't pretend that the thought of leaving you in a year doesn't make me feel like I'm drowning." He stood abruptly, lifting her onto the desk and stepping between her thighs. "Say it clearly. No ambiguity. I'm falling in love with you." The confession hung between them, irrevocable. "I think I have been since you put this ring on my finger and looked at me like I was worth going to war for. You are worth it." His forehead pressed to hers. "Worth every risk, every battle, every moment of fear. I fought this, fought you, because I knew once I admitted it, there'd be no going back. But I'm done fighting." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I love you, Vanessa Hart. I'm saying this stopped being an arrangement the moment you looked at me in that club with fire in your eyes instead of fear. I'm saying that after tomorrow, when you become my wife, I'm never letting you go." She kissed him then, pouring every ounce of emotion into it. His response was immediate and overwhelming, hands roaming her body with reverent hunger. Papers scattered as he pushed everything off the desk, laying her back against the cool wood. "We shouldn't," she gasped as his mouth traveled down her throat. "Tomorrow night, after the wedding? I can't wait until tomorrow." His eyes met hers, blazing with need. "I need you now. Need to claim you as mine before I watch you walk down that aisle. Need to know that when Kozlov sees you tomorrow, he'll see a woman thoroughly loved by the man he's trying to destroy." "Then take me," Vanessa breathed. "Make me yours." What happened next was inevitable, explosive, and utterly consuming. They came together with the desperation of people who'd been denying themselves too long, finding release and connection in equal measure. Afterward, lying tangled together on the leather sofa in his office, Vanessa traced patterns on Dante's chest and tried to process how completely her life had transformed. "No regrets?" he asked quietly. "None. You? Only that I didn't do this sooner." He pressed a kiss to her hair. "Tomorrow, everyone will know you're mine. Tonight, I just wanted you to know it yourself." "I've known for a while," she admitted. "I was just too scared to admit it." "And now?" "Now I'm still scared. But I'm also certain. This is where I belong. With you, in your world, facing whatever comes next together. Even if what comes next is dangerous? Especially then." He held her tighter, and for a few precious hours, the world outside ceased to exist. There was no Kozlov, no threats, no violence waiting in the shadows. Just two people who'd found each other in the wreckage of their broken plans and somehow built something worth fighting for. But dawn came eventually, as it always did. And with it, the day that would change everything. The Cathedral of St. Patrick rose like a Gothic dream against the Manhattan skyline, its spires reaching toward heaven while the congregation inside dealt in decidedly earthly matters. Every pew was filled with New York's elite, Politicians, businessmen, socialites, and more than a few individuals whose wealth came from ventures the law frowned upon. In the bridal suite, Vanessa stood before a full-length mirror, barely recognizing the woman staring back. The gown was a masterpiece, ivory silk that hugged her curves before flowing into a cathedral train, with delicate lace sleeves and a neckline that managed to be both modest and alluring. Diamonds glittered at her throat and ears, gifts from Dante that probably cost more than her childhood home. But it was her face that struck her most. Gone was the uncertain woman who'd discovered her fiancé's betrayal weeks ago. In her place stood someone stronger, sharper, transformed by fire into something unbreakable. "You look like a queen," her mother said, dabbing at her eyes. They'd reconciled over the past weeks, her mother finally accepting that Dante made Vanessa happy in ways Marcus never had. "Are you ready?" More than ready. Outside the door, she could hear Luca coordinating security with terse efficiency. Dante's men were everywhere, dressed in formal wear but unmistakably armed. The tracking device sat cool against her skin, hidden beneath her dress. Kozlov was here. She'd glimpsed him earlier, a bear of a man with cold eyes, sitting near the back with his own security detail. The tension in the cathedral was palpable, two opposing forces circling each other while maintaining the veneer of civility. The music began. Wagner's bridal chorus, traditional and elegant. Vanessa's father appeared at her side, looking distinguished in his tuxedo. "Last chance to run," he said with gentle humor. "I'm exactly where I want to be, Dad." "I know. That's what terrifies me." He squeezed her hand. "But I've seen how he looks at you. Like you hung the moon and stars just for him. That's worth any amount of danger." They began the long walk down the aisle. The congregation rose, heads turning, whispers rippling through the crowd. Vanessa saw familiar faces, society friends who'd once pitied her, now looking at her with envy and awe. She saw Marcus in a back pew, his face twisted with barely concealed rage, Ashley conspicuously absent. But mostly, she saw Dante. He stood at the altar in a black tuxedo that emphasized his powerful build, his dark eyes locked on her with such intensity that everything else faded to background noise. This man, this dangerous, complicated, devoted man, was about to become her husband. Not in pretense, not in some cold business arrangement, but in truth. When she reached him, he took her hand with barely concealed possessiveness. "Beautiful," he murmured, low enough that only she could hear. "Absolutely devastating." "Try to focus on the vows," she whispered back. "Impossible when you look like that." The ceremony began, traditional Catholic liturgy spoken by a priest who'd probably blessed mob bosses for generations. Vanessa barely heard the words, too focused on Dante's hand holding hers, his thumb tracing patterns on her palm. Then came the vows. Not the standard recitations, but personal promises Dante had insisted on writing himself. "Vanessa," he began, his voice carrying through the cathedral, "I've lived most of my life believing I'd never find someone worth the risk of loving, worth the vulnerability, the fear, the absolute certainty that losing them would destroy me. Then, you walked into my world with tears on your face and fire in your heart, and I knew. I was already destroyed, already yours, even before you knew my name." His grip on her hands tightened. "I promise to protect you with everything I have, to stand beside you against any threat, any challenge, any storm. I promise to see you, truly see you, not as an asset or a trophy, but as my equal, my partner, my home. I promise that every choice I make, every battle I fight, will be with your happiness in mind. And I promise that when this world tries to break you, I'll be there to remind you of your strength." Vanessa's eyes burned with unshed tears. Her turn. "Dante, when my world fell apart, you gave me a choice, to hide from the pain or to transform it into power. You saw potential in me that I'd never seen in myself. You challenged me, protected me, and somehow made me feel both cherished and formidable." She took a shaky breath. I promise to stand with you in your darkest moments, to be your light when the weight of your world becomes too heavy. I promise to never run from who you are or what you've done. I promise to love every part of you, the gentleman and the monster, the protector and the predator, because all of those pieces make up the man I choose, today and every day after. The priest concluded the ceremony, pronouncing them husband and wife. You may kiss your bride, he intoned. Dante didn't need to be told twice. He pulled Vanessa into his arms and kissed her with a passion that made several guests gasp and others cheer. It was possessive, claiming, a public declaration that left no doubt about the authenticity of their feelings. When they finally broke apart, Vanessa was breathless and flushed, and Dante looked triumphant. They turned to face the congregation as husband and wife, and Vanessa caught Kozlov's expression, cold calculation mixed with grudging respect. He'd come expecting to find weakness, a love match to exploit. Instead, he'd witnessed something that clearly unsettled him. Genuine devotion backed by lethal capability. The reception was held in the plaza's grand ballroom, transformed into a winter wonderland of white roses, crystal, and candlelight. Champagne flowed freely, and Vanessa and Dante moved through the crowd like royalty, accepting congratulations and well wishes. When they reached Kozlov's table, the Russian stood with exaggerated courtesy. Moretti, he said, his accent thick. Beautiful ceremony. Your bride is exceptional. Yes, she is. Dante's arm wrapped around Vanessa's waist, protective and possessive. Thank you for attending, Victor. I know tensions between our organizations have been high lately. Tensions can be resolved between reasonable men. Kozlov's smile didn't reach his eyes. Perhaps your marriage is opportunity for new beginning, yes? Clean slate? Perhaps, Dante replied neutrally. We should discuss it further. After the honeymoon, of course. Of course. Kozlov's gaze lingered on Vanessa for a moment too long. You are a lucky man, Moretti. Such precious things are easily broken. The threat was subtle, but unmistakable. Dante's expression went arctic. Precious things under my protection tend to remain intact, he said softly, while those who threaten them tend to disappear. I'm sure you understand. The two men stared at each other, predators sizing up potential prey. Then Kozlov laughed, breaking the tension. Is good you protect your investments, Dante. Shows wisdom. He raised his champagne glass. To new beginning, yes? To new beginnings, Dante echoed, though his eyes promised anything but. Later, during their first dance, Vanessa asked quietly, What was that about? He essentially threatened me in the middle of our reception. He was testing boundaries, seeing if I'd react with violence at my own wedding. Dante guided her through a turn, his movements elegant despite his size. I responded with restraint, which he'll interpret as either weakness or control. He'll spend the next few weeks trying to determine which. And in the meantime? In the meantime, we go on our honeymoon as planned. Let him think he's gotten under my skin. Let his guard down. His smile was predatory. Then we strike when he least expects it. We? Did you think I'd leave you behind now? You're my wife, Vanessa. My partner in everything. He leaned in close. Besides, you've proven you can handle my world. Might as well see how good you are at the game. Before she could respond, Marcus appeared at the edge of the dance floor, clearly drunk and belligerent. Need to talk to you, he slurred, swaying slightly. Both of you. Dante's grip on Vanessa tightened, but she touched his chest gently. It's fine. Let's hear what he has to say. They moved to a private corner, away from prying eyes and ears. You think you've won, Marcus spat, his words aimed at Vanessa. Think you've upgraded, trading me for this criminal. But you're just his trophy, Vanessa. Something shiny to legitimize his dirty money. The moment you stop being useful, he'll discard you like garbage. Are you finished? Vanessa asked coldly. I loved you. We had plans, a future. You loved my family connections and my father's money. You loved having a respectable fiancé while you screwed my stepsister. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a lethal whisper. You want to know the difference between you and Dante? When he looks at me, he sees a person. When you looked at me, you saw a means to an end. So don't you dare stand there and pretend your betrayal was anything less than exactly what you wanted. Marcus recoiled as if slapped. You've changed. He's corrupted you. He's freed me, Vanessa corrected. From you, from expectations, from the cage I didn't even realize I was in. And I've never been happier. You'll regret this, Marcus said desperately. When reality sets in, when you realize what kind of man you've married, the kind who would burn the world for me, Dante interjected, his voice silky with menace. The kind who keeps his promises? The kind who sees his wife as his equal rather than his property? Yes, Marcus. Terrible qualities in a husband. He moved closer, and Marcus stumbled backward. I warned you what would happen if you approached my wife. Consider this your only pass, out of respect for the wedding. But if you come near Vanessa again, if you speak to her, contact her, or even think too hard about her, I will make you disappear. And trust me, after what you put her through, I'll enjoy every moment of it. Security appeared then, Luca and Marco, flanking Marcus with professional efficiency. Please escort Mr. Blackwood from the premises, Dante instructed. Ensure he understands he's not welcome at any Moretti property or event going forward. As they led Marcus away, Vanessa exhaled slowly. That felt good. Better than I expected. Closure usually does. Dante tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Now, what do you say we get out of here? I have a honeymoon suite waiting, and I've been incredibly patient all day. Patient? You kissed me like you were starving in front of 300 people. Exactly. Patient. His grin was wicked. You have no idea what I wanted to do. They slipped away from the reception, leaving their guests to celebrate without them. The honeymoon suite at the plaza was decadent, all luxury and romance, with rose petals scattered across surfaces and champagne chilling in ice. But Vanessa barely noticed the details. She only had eyes for her husband, this man who'd taken her broken pieces and helped her forge them into armor. So, she said, turning to face him, what now, Mr. Moretti? Now, he replied, closing the distance between them with predatory grace. I spend the rest of the night reminding you exactly why you chose me, why you'll keep choosing me, every day, for the rest of our lives. Bold assumption. Not an assumption. A promise. He cupped her face, his touch gentle despite the intensity in his eyes. I love you, Vanessa Moretti. Every fierce, brilliant, breathtaking part of you. And I will spend every day proving I'm worthy of the gift you've given me. What gift? Your trust, your heart, your future. He kissed her softly, reverently. Everything. Vanessa pulled him closer, surrendering to the heat building between them. Outside, the city sprawled in all its glory and grit. Dangers lurked, enemies plotted, and their future was anything but certain. But none of that mattered in this moment, because she'd found something she hadn't even known she was searching for. A love fierce enough to survive anything, a partner strong enough to stand beside her through chaos, and a home in the arms of the most dangerous man in New York. Their arrangement had been temporary, a business transaction meant to last a year. Instead, it had become forever, and Vanessa wouldn't have it any other way. The end.